Hello and welcome to episode 125 of the official EstablishTheRun.com podcast. My name is Adam Levitan. I'm the father of the most beautiful beast in the world, Jerry. We're coming off of a easy game kind of week. Jamal Williams with Aaron Jones out at 4K. Of course, Gio Bernard with Joe Mixon out at 4,500. Yahtzee, Devontae Adams with Aaron Jones out against the Texans. Of course, Kyler in the elite game environment matchup. Same for Lockett. Even things that made sense, like Joe Burrow, no Joe Mixon meant pass game specialist Gio Bernard was going to be an every down back. Brown's a pass funnel. Burrow with, 2.5 really good weapons. The half, of course, being AJ Green. I mean, even that stuff got there. Let's put it this way. Our optimal lineup, which simply means take our projections on Establish the Run, load them into an optimizer, and find the best projected lineup. That lineup scored 208 points on DraftKings. Insane. Like 208 is normally enough to win a tournament. And of course, when you look back, it's easy, right? Even in tournaments, in hindsight, it just makes perfect sense. You take the best quarterback play on the slate in Kyler, stack him with two of his teammates. The only real options were DeAndre Hopkins and Christian Kirk, since Larry Fitzgerald continues to cock block Andy Isabella. And then you bring it back with the opponent in Tyler Lockett. Play the no-brainer running backs to fit it all in. Gio, Jamal, Hunt, Kamara. Play the no-brainer defense in the Washington football team. Go cheap at tight end with one of the Browns guys or Logan Thomas or Jared Cook or whatever. And we have the Stones. It seems so easy. But anyway, when there are so many slam dunk plays, it creates a situation where there really aren't too many decisions in cash. And I mean, gosh, even at defense, where you can normally make a case for a few of them, the spot for Washington football team defense was just off the wall. One of the league's worst offensive lines in the Cowboys, facing Chase Young, facing Montez Sweat, one of the league's best pass rush units. Thorne's number 2 mismatch on the week. Immobile Andy Dalton. It's raining. Cowboys are on the road. They're outside. 2,500 and I think they were 3,600 on Fanduel. I think if you didn't play Washington defense in cash, you really, really need to examine the way you think about DST. And it was kind of the same story at running back, where I thought there were only 3 possible plays for the 3 spots on DraftKings, and 4 possible plays, adding Kareem Hunt to Gio, Jamal Williams, and Alvin Kamara, 4 possible plays on FanDuel where Kareem Hunt was so cheap. And the same story at wide receiver, where Devontae Adams, Galladay, Lockett, Keenan, McLaurin, Traquan stood so far above the rest. And the same story at tight end, where it was only Kelsey, Jared Cook, or one of the Browns guys. So yeah, going to get a ton of overlap. It didn't need to be any kind of rocket science. Rocket scientist, I think, to come up with the optimal lineup this week, or what we thought was the optimal lineup this week. And, so many people, and actually not so many, way less than there's been before. But I don't know, maybe 3 or 4, 5 people sent me notes like, Adam, you had the same lineup as XYZ person. You were colluding, you cheater. And, it just, those people just expose themselves as people who have no idea what's actually going on, at higher levels of DFS in terms of understanding projections and understanding just really obvious stuff. By the way, speaking of overlaps, wanted to mention that if you guys are playing head-to-heads and you have the same lineup as your opponent, you should be able to get your rake back. On FanDuel, you should email their support and they will credit your account. On DraftKings, it should be automatic, although you should confirm it went through. And if it didn't go through, email their support. Just a PSA. I mean, it's likely not a lot of money unless you were getting pushes at high stakes, but still, edges are small and we leave no stone unturned here. We're grinding our daily rewards. We're swapping off of blocks. We're getting our rake back on pushes. We're out for blood, man. Jimmy sent in a question. He said, in head-to-head contests on a slate like Sundays where the same lineup was duped in many instances, is a plus EV to late swap in head-to-head games where your opponent has the same lineup, or just tie/pay the rake, i.e. swap from Kyler Kelsey to Herbert Fant or something like that. Yeah, no, I'm not swapping off just because I know that I'm going to get a push. Let's say you go down to 40% versus tie is 100% and you go down to 40% to win. And I think Herbert Fant was way less than Kyler Kelsey than 40%. But, if you can get it down to something like that, it's still not worth it. You still want to take the tie there than the risk for sure, especially once we know that we get our rake back, which I hope you guys already knew, but now you know. So yeah, of course, weeks like this are going to come down to narrow 2v2s and 3v3s in cash. And I talked about some of the 2v2s and 3v3s I considered in the lineup review article, which is up for free on ETR. And I get that that's tilting. I get that having 2v2s and 3v3s deciding all the money is tilting. And honestly, like even I've been playing a ton more tournaments this year, 6 to 10 GPP lineups a week and certainly having fun with that. But for these tight 2v2s and 3v3s in cash, I really wanted to develop a more scientific process. So over the last couple of weeks, the R&D team at GenderLabs, aka Gender Consultants LLC, we've been working on a proprietary new model. It's called the PSM, the penis size model. And how this model works is very simple. Just like the age model, there's only one input. You input your 2v2. So for example, in week 6, the 2v2 I struggled with was Adam Thielen and Myles Gaskin versus Chase Claypool and Derrick Henry. You put those players into the model and it spits back out who wins in cumulative penis size. And that's who you play, no questions asked. So in the example that I gave, I mean, Jesus, it's a blowout, Claypool and Henry, just total freaks. Thielen and Gaskin, with all due respect, the PSM model, it speaks the truth and only the truth. So anyways, we're back testing that model on our lab rats in Singapore, of course, and I'm not sure exactly when it'll be ready for public consumption, but we'll be sure to let you all know. Okay, before we get to today's listener questions, wanted to remind everyone that, yes, we have a sponsor for this podcast, if you can actually believe that. It's brought to you by the good people at Underdog. If you want some background on Underdog, I'd highly recommend going back and listening to episode 82. I did an interview with Jeremy Levine, the founder, also founded Draft, also very good ping pong player, also working on tequila and sports cards, and who knows what else. Anyway, I think Underdog Fantasy has some really innovative games that you guys would enjoy. The concept right now they have going is called Battle Royale. It's a combination of DFS and best ball. It's really simple. You take a 6-player roster in a snake draft, but it's a GPP style tournament for 1 week. So it creates a lot of interesting strategy. In a 6-round draft, you aren't going to have to go really deep into the player pool, but you still want to be stacking. You still want to try to find some off the board plays that have a reasonable chance of a spike week, because much like regular DFS, you can't just play the optimal and expect to win a large field tournament. You can get in for $5 and first place is $4K. After you deposit, mention on the pop-up you heard about Underdog on ETR, and you'll be eligible for some ETR swag that we'll have an announcement about soon. Again, underdogfantasy.com. Make sure to enter promo code ETR after you make a deposit. Okay, enough is enough. It is time for everyone's favorite portion of the program. Producer Luke, hit the theme music. Okay, got a ton of good ones. As always, really appreciate the questions. Going to do 7 today. Number 1 comes from Gino. He says, what is the story behind the hello intro? I'm a fan and a subscriber, but I got to be honest, after the 100th hello, I've started pods 15 seconds in. Keep doing your thing, those sharp takes. Yeah, thanks, Gino. So I think my natural self, my natural state is really unemotional, never get excited, never get too depressed, but obviously, bring some level of energy is almost a must for a podcast. I mean, I'm doing a fucking show here, right? Like I'm not here to lecture on biology or something. So I try to at least start the show with some good energy before I devolve into my, normal self-loathing state. And also the hello is kind of ironic, right? Like I think of it similar to Stern. Like you guys know me, I'm not into the corny professional broadcaster shit. I'm not here to be inauthentic. In fact, the exact opposite. But by going with the big, Seinfeld giant ball of oil hello, I think there's some irony there. It just seems right. Question 2 from the Mish. He says, I'm not getting as much action in cash as I'm used to this season. From a bankroll management entry strat standpoint, how do you account for the potential that you won't get as much cash action as you're planning on, thus leaving your GPP/cash allocation a bit more lopsided than you'd like? Yeah, I mean, look, I've said this a bunch of times before. I understand that I personally get better action than everyone else. And like, I get it. People recognize my name. Oh, that's the dude who does the sex jokes on Twitter. I'll play him. So I haven't really noticed a decline in head-to-head action for me. But I do believe you, Mish, and I believe everybody else. look, like the bottom line to me is that we have to go where the action is. In poker, all the whales started wanting to play PLO. Well, you know what, man? We got to play PLO. They wanted to play short deck. Well, you know what? We got to learn to play short deck. And it's obvious, it's been obvious for a few years now, I think, that in DFS, that action is in tournaments. The softest stuff for sure is in the super large field stuff, small entry, super large field, but realizing our equity there could take years or decades or never. So, in the single entry and the 3 max and the medium field stuff, I think that's a good place to cross over from thinking about cash exclusively or 90% to thinking about how to make good GPP teams. And honestly, like I'm not the best at it. I'm trying, but Dink and Leone really are. I hope you guys are reading and listening to their stuff on the site, really learning a lot. So to answer the question, even though I've been getting good cash action, my split between cash and GPP on a weekly basis is now probably closer to 60-40. And that's on purpose. It's just more fun, more interesting, good diversification. Question 3 from Bella. Do you listen to old Stern shows or just the new stuff? Actually, mostly just the old stuff. I mean, I grew up watching the E! Show and listening on the radio on my way to high school. It's crazy how much the show and him have changed, though. Like on the old stuff, you could tell he just didn't care about anyone else, like so narcissistic. His guests, he didn't care about them or anything. He was just making it all about him. So I actually like the celebrity interviews now better because he's actually interested in what the person is saying. He makes it about them. And of course, he asks about sex and money, the only things people care about. But in terms of bits and characters and just regular banter, I mean, you just can't beat the old shows. It was like 10 times better. I mean, doing absurd things that would never fly today, Wood Yee and Daniel Carver and Hank and the nonstop parade of porno chicks into the studio and Sibian rides. I mean, you would never, ever do that stuff today, but it was so good. And like, I get that I'm sick because I loved and still love that stuff and think it's so funny, still look for it on YouTube. But what quote unquote society doesn't understand is that, yes, I'm sick, that I love it and I probably shouldn't, but there are a ton of us, like the most popular radio show in history. Literally Stern is carrying an entire new platform in satellite radio on his back. And so, yeah, it's just the old stuff is so good, though. To answer your question, Bella. Question 4 from Robert. He says, is the age model now locked in for life with Kelsey's performance, or did he do well enough to leave it in question? And will you ever pay up for tight end and cash again? Yeah, I mean, look the way the Chiefs game went. I don't think Kelsey's outcome had too much to do with his ability at this point in his career. He is 31, and I think I want to be careful with him for sure. But, the Chiefs scored 2 defensive touchdowns. They only run 51 offensive plays. It's a blowout. I'm not going to put this one on Kelsey's age. I'll put it on me. Paying up at tight end, which I don't know, I've probably talked about 10 times on this podcast in the last year. Paying up at a tight end, which I never do, for a guy in a snow game on a team tilting run heavier this season against an opponent highly unlikely to generate a good game environment. It's just wasn't great in general. It was just, had so much money. And obviously the easy answer was not to play Traquan, but then I would have had to come off Kyler most likely. And so that's where you got into the 3v3 stuff. Question 5 from Slick Cowboy. He says, thoughts on Empire Maker's dick measuring contest? Yeah, I love it. For you guys that don't know, Empire Maker is basically just on Twitter taking on all comers. And I love it. There are a ton of people who talk shit in this world, especially in the internet age, especially in the social media age. A fraction of those people are actually willing to put money on it. They're so certain about X or Y or Z. But the only thing that matters, at least to me, is if you'll bet on it. So if you say, in this example, X person sucks at fantasy, or if you say, I'm the best at DFS, well, shit, man, I got good news. We can actually play. Also in poker right now, I was never really into watching poker too much or following the quote unquote scene, the poker scene, but this Doug Polk versus Daniel Negreanu heads up for rolls match is so good. Like 2 guys who really hate each other, settling it with some nosebleed stakes heads up action. You really do love to see it. Question 6 from Devin says, does the front half of your head get cold the way you wear a stocking cap? Listen, Devin, have you seen the way that Brad Pitt wears his wool hat, or the way that Jake Gyllenhaal wears his, or Zac Efron? Yeah, they are on the same wavelength as me. You know, me, Brad, Jake, Zach, we are among the most beautiful men in the world. So what you do is you push the hat all the way up to the top. You let the hat cluster in the back a little bit, you know, easy game. You know, you get the sex. All right, last question we're going to do today. One of the best friends of the show, CSU Ram 88, aka Peter Jennings. By the way, soon to be starting a new show loosely about sports betting. Not sure exactly when it will be up, but be sure to go to our YouTube channel, ETR YouTube channel, and check it out. Okay, anyway, Peter's question. How much money would you have to be paid to lick a random public bathroom toilet seat? How much money would you have to be paid to lick a random public bathroom toilet seat? Yeah, so easy answer here. If it's a female bathroom, I lick the seat for free. You know, my pleasure. If it's a male bathroom, I'd say roughly 1.2 million. Okay, that is going to do it for today's solo pod. Be sure to head to establishtheRun.com. We are running a sale right now for the rest of the season now that there are 7 weeks of NFL action in the books. I'll be back later tonight with Silva for the Team by Team podcast. For producer Luke, for Jerry, I am Adam. Good luck, everybody.